10. An undercover sting. In 2017, 3 college students were arrested during an undercover sting operation in Florida. The students are Acacia Jericho Friedman, Mary Noun, and Samara Charlottin, all between the ages of 19 and 23. Inside a scummy hotel room, Acacia and Samara, with Maury acting as their pimp, negotiated a deal with an undercover cop to perform certain services together for a cool $5,000. The 3 college students were planning on splitting the money, while Maury waited for Acacia and Samara to take care of business with the undercover officer. But there was absolutely no business taken care of, except for the 3 university students being arrested and thrown in jail. Their time behind bars didn't last long though, and they were released on bond almost immediately. Samara was majoring in biology and minoring in criminal justice at the time, while Acacia even had pictures on her social media with former President Bill Clinton. From the outside, these looked like perfectly ordinary university students, and yet they were involved in a bizarre prostitution network headed by another student, Maury, who was their pimp. Last we heard, nobody got any jail time, and all 3 were free to go about their business. 9. MIKAYLA MUNN. MIKAYLA MUNN is a former Manchester University student who was arrested for murder. According to the authorities, she killed her infant son just moments after he was born in March of 2016. MIKAYLA was 21 years old when she called the police at 11:28 p.m. on March 8th. She told the 911 operator that something was wrong with her baby. When emergency crews arrived at her university dorm room, they found her in the bathtub with the boy she just delivered. She had literally just given birth and was still in the cold water with the deceased baby. She and the child were taken to the hospital, where the infant was pronounced dead. At first, it looked like a tragic accident, but there were some inconsistencies that the police didn't like, and so the North Manchester Police Department started an investigation. They learned that MIKAYLA had been searching for home abortion methods. They also learned that she had lied to the first responders and claimed to have not even known about her pregnancy. Yet back in October, she'd sent text messages to the man she thought could be the father of her baby, telling him that she was pregnant. Clearly, MIKAYLA's story was twisted up. Finally, a forensic pathologist confirmed that MIKAYLA had been conscious during the delivery, and the child had been born perfectly healthy. The only reason her baby died was because she drowned it in that tub on purpose. 8. Grade hacking. A university student in Georgia was arrested in 2016 for hacking into his school's computer system. His name is Chase Arthur Hughes, and he's a student at Kennesaw State University. He used his girlfriend's internet connection to breach the school system, then change his grades. But he didn't stop at his own grades. He changed the grades of 4 of his friends as well. For one of his courses, he switched his B to an A. And for one of his classmates, he changed their grade from an F to an A. He did this over the summer after classes had already finished. Then to top it all off, Chase stole data from the university. He managed to get a hold of the login data of 4 professors at the school, then dig through their files to peek at sensitive and confidential information. Things like credit scores, medical details, and all kinds of stuff. He managed to get the usernames and passwords of 36 faculty members. We don't know for sure, but it seems that his plan was to use these usernames and passwords to access their personal accounts. Perhaps banking accounts, social media accounts. Chase could have used this information to cause a lot of damage. But he never got the opportunity. Chase was busted and charged with computer trespassing, computer forgery, and computer invasion of privacy. He was looking at up to 15 years in prison and a maximum fine of around $50,000. However, it seems that the case is still pending, or he got away light, because there haven't been any updates since 2016. 7. The trouble with mac and cheese. A student from the University of Connecticut was facing criminal charges in 2015 over a ridiculous confrontation involving macaroni and cheese. Freshman Luke Gatti was caught on video for 9 minutes arguing with the manager of the university's student union on a Sunday night. The argument started because the food court manager on the campus refused to let Luke purchase macaroni and cheese with bacon and jalapenos. It wasn't anything personal against Luke. The manager refused him service because he'd walked in with an open alcohol container. Luke was totally wasted and just grew more and more violent the longer he argued with the manager. Footage showed Luke shoved the guy, used some seriously frowned upon slurs, and was tackled by another employee at the food court. The police then had to drag him out of the building, kicking, cursing, and spitting. He was charged with the breach of the peace and criminal trespassing. For Luke, this was his third strike, so to speak. He'd been arrested twice the previous year on different disorderly conduct charges. He even used racial slurs against police officers. Luke absolutely ruined his chance at higher education because, apparently, he just couldn't stop partying and getting into trouble. 6. Romance gone sour. Katie Benoit, a 22-year-old student at the University of Idaho, was discovered dead in August of 2011 on the front porch of her home in Moscow. The day after, Professor Ernesto A. Bustamante was found dead in a hotel room, a revolver in his hand and a bullet in his head. According to Katie's roommates, she had been in the middle of baking cookies when Bustamante showed up, and there were multiple gunshots, and he was seen by neighbors fleeing in a dark trench coat. Bustamante and Benoit had been in a romantic relationship. However, the relationship between the student and professor had soured and turned violent. Katie's roommates told the police that their romance ended months earlier in March, and that the breakup was definitely not mutual. After they parted ways, Bustamante continued threatening her. At one point, he held Katie down and put a gun in her mouth. This guy was bad news, and the roommates were terrified for their friend. Plus, Bustamante apparently had multiple personality disorder. One of his personalities was a psychopathic killer, which Bustamante called the Beast. 5. Jenna Burlleigh. Jenna Burlleigh was an activist and all-around decent human being. She was a student at Temple University in Philadelphia and an advocate for social justice and homeless awareness. But Jenna's bright future was cut short following an unfortunate sexual encounter with a man in his apartment in 2017. Joshua Hupperters, 30 years old, had taken the 22-year-old girl out on a date. They met at a bar in the early morning hours of August 31st. Then they wound up back at his place, and that was when things started to get hot and heavy. However, according to prosecutors, that was also when things went terribly wrong. They started out very consensual, but the encounter soon turned violent. Joshua requested a specific act, which Jenna politely refused. But Joshua didn't take the refusal well. He beat and strangled Jenna right there in his own apartment. She died from extreme blunt force trauma and strangulation. Unfortunately, it gets even worse. Joshua stuffed Jenna's dead body into a plastic box, moved that box into his mother's house, then later transported it to his grandmother's house in the Pocono Mountains. Joshua was the main suspect, and police soon gathered enough evidence to make an arrest. During their investigation, they also discovered Jenna's body at his grandmother's place. During sentencing, Common Pleas Court Judge Glenn Bronson called what Joshua did an outrageous and depraved crime. He told Joshua that he had extinguished the life of an extraordinarily special person, someone who had a lot to give. And in the end, Joshua was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was given a life sentence and denied the possibility of ever coming up for parole. 4. MACKENZIE LUECK. MACKENZIE LUECK was 23 years old on the night of her murder, on June 17, 2019. MACKENZIE had been studying at the University of Utah when she signed herself onto a dating website. Through the site, she came into contact with Ayoola Ajayi, a Nigerian immigrant with a green card who was allowed to work in the US. He briefly studied at Utah State University, but was kicked off campus in 2012 for allegations of theft. But that wasn't the only trouble Ayoola had gotten himself into while in America. He assaulted a woman that he met on a dating app in March of 2018, but was never prosecuted for it. He was also investigated in connection to another savage crime in 2014, but the victim never pursued charges. This guy had a major history of violence against women. And in 2019, he asked a building contractor to construct a secret soundproof room for him underneath his front porch. The request was so clearly that of a serial killer that the contractor turned it down. But since Ayoola hadn't committed any murders yet, there was nothing the police could do. The relationship between Ayoola and MACKENZIE was a romantic affair. The website they met on was something called Seeking Arrangements, where wealthy men are able to procure the affection of younger women, known as sugar babies. And so, in the morning hours of June 17th, MACKENZIE arrived at the Salt Lake City International Airport to meet Ayula. He'd already planned the whole thing out. Immediately upon entering his residence, Ayula strangled MACKENZIE with a belt until she stopped moving. He then hit her over the head so hard that he caused brain hemorrhaging, which was the ultimate cause of death. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 3. Eaten by a shark. Jordan Lindsay was 21 years old and had a very bright future ahead of her. But the Torrance College student needed a break from all the studying. In the summer school break of 2019, she went on vacation to the Bahamas with her family, and that's where disaster struck. Jordan was swimming in the middle of the afternoon near Ross Island. This is just a little northeast of Nassau. From out of nowhere, 3 sharks appeared in the water and began to circle Jordan. Shark attacks do happen here occasionally, but they're usually not so strategic and coldly calculated. The sharks attacked as a team, biting into her arms, legs, and buttocks. According to Paul Roll with the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the attack was so savage that her right arm was ripped off completely. Jordan died there in the water, bleeding to death in the jaws of 3 apex predators. Jordan's parents saw the sharks coming and tried to warn her, but tragically, Jordan didn't hear them, and they could do nothing but watch in disbelief as the water began to bubble with blood. She was taken to the hospital, but there was nothing doctors could do. We don't even know what breed of shark was responsible for the attack, nor why they singled her out with such apparent purpose. Shark attacks are usually committed by just one shark, and mostly because there's an accidental encounter. But this seemed almost planned. In the aftermath, the university did make plans to honor Lindsay's life with a plaque at the school student memorial. 2. Electric shock. A man drank too much beer and got a little too brave following a house party near Ohio University in Athens back in 2019. The guy got wasted, then in front of a crowd of drunk, cheering university students, climbed to the top of an electricity pole and got an unexpected shock. The stunt was entirely fueled by alcohol, and none of the students tried to stop him. The individual, identified later as Tyler Ewer, climbed all the way to the top of the pole and grabbed a hold of a live wire. This sent a powerful surge of electricity coursing through his body and caused a fireworks display of sparks and flame. There was a split second in which Tyler seemed paralyzed at the top, the electricity arcing all around him. And then, a great explosion that sent Tyler flipping through the air to land 30 feet 9 meters below on the concrete. Miraculously, Tyler didn't even die. He survived the electric shock to his system and the force of landing on his head on the concrete. Of course, he was severely injured and had to be brought to the hospital. He suffered 3 broken bones in his left leg, one of which poked through his skin, a slight fracture in his right hand, and 4 minor breaks in his back. He was also covered in burns and had to spend 8 weeks healing. 1. Casey Shulman. University of Virginia student Casey Shulman was participating in Semester at Sea back in 2012. For those who haven't heard of it, it's a multinational study program in which students from all over the world study in harmony on a ship as it cruises the 7 seas. It's one of the most coveted study programs in the world. Sadly, it was the last fun thing Casey would ever do with her life. At 22 years old, the Virginia native was bludgeoned to death by a propeller. She'd gone recreational snorkeling in the Caribbean. According to the university officials, she and some other students had organized the trip by themselves. They hired a boat owned by a local and went for a Saturday afternoon snorkel. The snorkeling went okay, and when they finished that, they went to a sandy beach to splash around on the shore. And that was when Casey Shulman was hit by the propeller. The captain of the boat had been driving in reverse and didn't see her. Casey didn't hear the propeller coming and never even felt the pain when it hit her. The force was so intense that she was killed instantly. Vice President and Chief of Student Affairs said in a statement after Casey's death that she will be remembered for a long time as a vibrant member of the community. Her death caused immense sadness at the university, and she was described as a bright light inside and outside the classroom. Her death, during what should have been the best year of her life, was a sad and tragic accident. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have to deal with a campus stalker or get into a fight with a shark while on a vacation? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye.